This is the BIG Sci-Fi Podcast, the biggest, most fun podcast in the galaxy. We're Adina, Brian, Chris, and Steve, and we love talking all things science fiction. This is Season 4, but our human adventure is just beginning as we gather around our computer consoles to discuss the science fiction of film, television, and literature. Join us on our quest for fun and fascination as we go where no podcast has gone before. Everyone has permission to come aboard the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, but make sure to find your seat fast because we're taking off in 3, 2, 1, hit it. This podcast is a part of the Trek Geeks Network.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm going to do my best to keep this intro short because me and my Big Sci-Fi Podcast hosts, Brian and Chris and Steve, we're all super excited to talk with our guest today, Michelle Hurd. Now, fellow Trekkies, of course, know her as Raffi Musiker, or as I like to say now, Raffaella of the House of Musiker from Star Trek Picard. Now, she's the only new and non-legacy character to be on all 3 seasons of the show, which is something we would definitely want to talk about. And if you're one of our listeners who is less Trek, then there's a good chance you've seen Michelle because she's had a long career appearing over multiple episodes in several popular shows like Gossip Girl, How to Get Away with Murder, Daredevil, The Glades, and so much more. And of course, the 2 series I used to watch regularly, which is where I knew her from, which was ER and Law and Order SVU. So I am seriously impressed with the breadth and longevity of your career, Michelle. So thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today, this evening.
Oh, thank you, Adina, for that beautiful intro. And hello, everybody. Hello to you all. It's so nice to be here with you, Brian, Chris, and Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, of course, we are dying to know, all things Picard. So we should probably get some of that out
Jump
first.
in there, right?
Yeah. Well, what was it like working with the rest of, you're coming in as a non-legacy, but you're in deep with all the legacy people, especially this last season. I mean, what was that like coming into that?
It was kind of wild because I'm going to tell something at the end, which is kind of weird, but I got into this habit during first season, where I would come to set and sort of on people's last day, I would come, whether I was working or not, I'd come to say, how much I appreciated them, their energy, bring them what they're, being here, working together. And I'd give help the official clap off. And so I started doing that each season because honestly, because everybody started to expect it. They're like, hey, Michelle, so-and-so is rapping tomorrow. Are you going to be here? I was like, oh, I guess I am. But I love doing it. And I have to say, doing it at the end of season 3 with those characters were kind of bizarre because, that's decades, of legacy.
Right.
3 seasons. And to sort of say, thank you so much for joining us was just a kind of a crazy experience. But that kind of encompasses what I've gone through. I'm very lucky because I got to spend, my first season, I worked mostly with Sir Patrick Stewart and Santiago Cabrera, who give him the props because I love Rio.
So good.
I love Rio. So I got to work with them, mostly. And then second season, I'm working with Jerry Ryan. I mean, what?
Right.
And then third season, I'm working with Michael Dorn. So I literally have had one of the most amazing experiences in this Star Trek, journey. And one of the things I didn't expect, which I was told very early on by both Jonathan Del Arco and Jonathan Frakes, that Star Trek is unlike any show you'll ever be on. You're going to have such an impact on not fans, but family, because Trekkies are family. We're all like-minded. We all, there's a reason that this thing, for 56 years, people have still been watching because we're all sort of bonded in this sort of, we're all sort of bonded in this the concept of showing a mirror up to society, trying to do better, make better choices, have hope for a better tomorrow, showing what other isms are like, what, we talked, the old Star Trek, the original, was talking about immigration.
Right.
Talking about sexism, was talking about racism. I mean, that episode, which I'm blanking on. I was trying to remember before I got on here. The original series where they have the black and white.
Yes.
Let this be your last battlefield.
Yes,
Let this be your last battlefield. This episode is about two groups of people, one that is black on the right side, one that is black on the left side. They're the same people,
right?
But because of their vitriol for each other, they destroy their planet.
Yes,
They
their entire
destroy
society.
the whole destroy it. And I mean, like, if we can't see that, then we're doomed, you know.
Yeah.
And I love that, you know, people who are Trekkies, we see it. We see it, and we're like, let's try to figure out how to do better with all of our iterations, all of the different shapes and sizes, all of the different sounds, the different looks, the different, you know, everything. We're here. Let's not destroy our world.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah, the 3 seasons have been kind of an amazing experience. Working this last season with the, you know, these legacy characters coming on was just, you know, a gift. I got to not only get to work with them, but I also got to, just like you guys, to say to them, thank you for what you gave me growing up. You know, I'm honored to share the space as a co-actor with you, but I'm also honored as a Trekkie fan to say thank you for what you did. I mean, LeVar Burton with the rainbow, tree reading.
Yeah.
I mean, he taught me, my nephews, you know, and not to mention he's Kunta Kinte. He's Kunta Kinte.
Right.
I mean,
I know.
Some people
on.
forget that about the Reading Rainbow legacy is so huge. Next Gen legacy is so huge that I think there is, and I hope a whole younger generation investigates LeVar Burton more, because when they see that Roots series and what he did and what that whole series was about, it could really affect some people in a very positive way.
Yeah. Because we all grew up on that. Like that was kind of history. That was like a lesson school for us. We also learned a whole bunch, and it was impactful. So yeah, but everybody, it's been amazing, you guys, amazing.
So did you know you were like was going to be, you know, getting involved in Trek meant kind of like all of this stuff too, and being, you know.
Well, I think like first season when Jonathan Del Arco and Jonathan Frakes told me that, they were like, Michelle, when this show's dropped. You know, and I mean, you know, you guys named some of the shows I've been on, big shows, huge followings all over. So there's nothing like it, because the day that this drops, you will be known and loved by 10 million people across the world, not America, the world. And I don't think I could really kind of understand. You know, I sort of was like, wow, that sounds crazy. Yay, you know, I didn't really get it. And I did Germany. FedCom. I went to Germany for the Comic-Con FedCom and was blown away. I mean, so many people, so many accents and languages, and, you know, and just love, you know, so much love for Star Trek and what it means. And so I don't think I really understood that. Although, you know, and I've told this before, you know, Star Trek in my house, I'm black and white. I'm biracial. My father is black and my mother is white. They have 3 daughters. I'm the baby. And my father was an actor. Actually, my parents were both actors. They met on stage together. But then once the kids started being born, my mom was like, somebody needs to make a steady income. I think I'll become a psychologist. She's a psychologist.
That's cool.
Yeah,
very good.
Very good. They're smart. But you know, my father wanted to make sure that his 3 daughters saw themselves represented in the world, in entertainment, in the galaxy. And because of Nichelle Nichols, Uhura, you know, we would sit down as a family and watch, you know, Star Trek reruns. And I think, and I don't know if people realize, and I think a lot of people do realize this, but I hope people really understand that optics really do matter. And we don't even understand the impact of optics.
Right.
Because I don't know if I knew, like as a little munchkin, if I was able to articulate this, but watching Uhura on the bridge, not just a woman of color on TV, she had gravitas, she had importance, she had, you know, they asked her for things, she gave them information. There are some episodes that she saved the day.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, there's quite a few. Yeah, it's amazing.
Quite a few, and I think that subconsciously, consciously, whatever, gave me and my sisters the permission to be bold. to be brave,
Mhm.
to just step up and speak and be seen. So
Right.
I appreciated that so much now, because now I thought, Michelle, biracial creature, woman of a certain age, crazy hair, you have the opportunity to do that, to move that forward.
Mhm.
And it's one of the things during the first season, before the first season started, I talked to my producers and we were talking about Raffi and what her look was. And I said, it's incredibly important for me that Raffi has a silhouette of unruly, huge, curly hair. Unruly. Because I want all these little munchkins that have this kind of crazy hair to see that it's okay, that it's beautiful, it's fine, and that I'm still here in 2400 in space with crazy curly hair. And one of the things that was interesting was that my hair person at the time, and I love her. There's nothing, all good things. But I speak of this because I want people to understand the sort of implicit, or that sometimes people can push agendas which they don't realize.
Right.
Because there was one day that we were shooting. I was sitting in the chair and we were just getting my wig on and we were preparing. And she said, "Hey, Michelle, I just had a great idea. I was thinking about it yesterday." I said, "Oh, what?" I was just thinking, if there's a moment where Raffi wants to get dressed up, gets fancy, we should, straighten her hair and we'll make her look glorious. And I turned to her and I said, why do you think Raffi would think that in order for herself to look beautiful, she'd have straightened hair?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Raffi wouldn't think that. Why would who would have told Raffi that? Why would
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And it's that thing of like, trying to get this to conform to a concept of beauty that this was never included in the first place.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
As people of color, there are so many different, locks, braids, boxes, twists, afro, so many different textures that was never included in the concept of beauty in America.
Yeah.
And we all started to try to homogenize ourselves. I have so many of my sisters, and my sisters of color are listening here. Please, I love you so much, and empower yourself. But the fact that we wear wigs every single day. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. Own that crown. Own that crown. And even if your crown is a half an inch long, baby, own that crown, because it's our natural beauty. But what I love is that when I said this to my producers, they were like, "Michelle, yes, let's do that, go." And that's again Star Trek.
That's awesome that you could say that and have that impact and be heard and not be dismissed. And actually, so that's wonderful. That's amazing.
That's the Star Trek. That's Roddenberry people. They're good about that, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, they've lived this philosophy since day one, and it's permeated through every single season, every single series, every single episode, right up into yourself. And by the way, curly hair is the greatest standout. My youngest daughter has curly hair, and that's the first thing they notice. And I think Adina's son has some lovely curls as well.
Yes.
Yep. And they look great.
Not the same texture, but it is crazy curly. What's interesting though is, and my older son also has long hair. It started out curly, but then he just started growing it out. It's just long. They often get confused, like, for being girls, even though if you actually look at them, you look at their face, they're not. But none of it's kind of funny because I was just telling this to someone the other day. We were out at a restaurant recently, just before Easter, and this older woman, looks at him, and then again, he's so cute, so people want to talk to and everything like that. And it was like a week before Easter, and she was like, "Oh, are you guys, getting ready for Easter? You have a nice, pretty dress picked out, yada, yada." And now I am half Jewish. In my head, I'm actually slightly more upset that she's making the assumption that we're
Celebrating
Easter celebrators. I'm not upset about the gender thing. I'm actually upset about about that. I'm half Jewish and half Catholic, and I'm not really anything. But the fact that was the assumption, and that's actually what bothers me a little bit. That. Yeah,
yeah. My son my wife has curly hair, and my son was gifted with incredibly curly hair, and he was the cutest little thing too, and beautiful eyes. And so people were always, oh, she's a beautiful baby. And so we're just like, we hardly ever corrected people because they're trying to pay a compliment. It's a beautiful kid, right?
They're trying to be nice.
But here's the thing is that one day Brody says to Dad, hey, I want my haircut like yours.
Oh, of course.
And so it happens, and the curly hair has never come back. Like, we have tried to let it grow it out, it's just gone.
Yeah, that was that baby curls. When the baby curls go away, that's it.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. Frank's has just kind of gotten long and wavy, and if he ever it's up to he's almost 13, so it's in his hands now what he wants to do, if he wants to cut it or not. But I will probably cry if he ever wants to cut his hair. I want
to mention real quick too, Michelle, because you touched on something that's really important for me as a dad with a daughter. That I for the first time, well, maybe not the first time, but I'm more sensitive to it now that I have a daughter. Understanding some of the hurdles she is going to have just because she's a woman. She will have to work harder to earn respect, to climb any ladder she wants to climb, whatever vocation she chooses.
Yeah.
And for something like, for me, and I'm not want to get political with it, but to watch the first women vice president get inaugurated, and our kids, whoever gets inaugurated, whoever we voted for or didn't vote for, we watch that. Right. That's important to watch.
Yeah.
Because we are, it's incredible we do that with peace.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yes.
And
well said.
And so I wanted her to see this woman.
Yeah.
And I'm cheering up going, Peyton, that could be you if you want it to be you.
Yes.
You want
the door was open. You're absolutely right, Brian.
Brian, that's a really great point. I said that to my sister when Obama was elected, because I have two glorious brown nephews. And I don't know about you guys, but when I went to school, which was 100 years ago, but when I went to school, in lower school, they had across the wall of the top of the classroom. They had the pictures of all the presidents,
right?
Right. Yep. And it's interesting, right? Because it was at the top around the room, right? So that's like above you, right? So without, once again, optics and subconscious, unconscious.
Yeah.
For the whole time that I was there in school, all I saw was older white men.
Right. Right.
Were always above me. And that was just the norm. There was not a question. There wasn't even discussion. It was just the norm. And all I could think of, just like you, Brian, my sister and I were crying on that day because all I kept thinking was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
From this moment on, little brown and black boys and girls are going to see something else on that wall.
Right.
And now they're gonna have that permission to go, I can be there as well. So I had the same experience. Yeah. Amazing.
That's great.
So growing, what you were saying a few minutes ago about things being subconscious and you're getting this, the message subconsciously. And I think I kind of experienced some of that too. Because of course I was aware of, Uhura growing up and, even Princess Leia, who was pretty bad. But what I'm noticing now, so now that I'm conscious of all that, this is where I'm so thrilled with your character of Raffi and Jerry Ryan's character, because women of a certain age and now getting that representation to kick butt and everything like that too, because that's been I feel like I remember 10, 20 years ago, the conversation being well, once you hit 40 or 50, you're going to be a mom or a grandma in TV and that's it. And now to actually see you and for me, I'm almost 49. And to see women who are a couple years older than me and basically my peers and kicking butt is so, it's like, oh my God, where's the treadmill? It's awesome. And I love it so much. And I'm feeling like I'm still not at the point. I still need mentors, right? And I still need women to look up to. And I'm so happy that you all are representing that aspect of life too. It's just amazing to me.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Adina, you guys know I played like cops and these things for a long time. I swear to God, it felt like when I turned 40, like in Hollywood, there was like a bell that went off, like ding 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 ding. Michelle can't run anymore. Michelle needs to be just the captain, because like literally, like it seemed like the next day I was now the captain as opposed to the detective. And I didn't really, I was like, okay, that's fine. I like being captain, no problem. And then I continued on and I was like, oh, I see. So I'm the captain.
You're the wise old captain now.
I'm the wise old captain
or whatever. Yeah.
Or I'm the divorcee.
Yes.
Or I'm the widower. Or I'm the it's the past. It's and it's a real head trip. It's a really crazy thing to sort of see how it's not the world, how the industry is going to force you to see yourself. Because we
fascinating.
Still see ourselves very viable. I'm still like, I can still run, I can jump and punch. What are you talking about? And I have to say that that's one of the things I have found, which I didn't know in my prior work, that sci-fi allows specifically women of a certain age to flourish.
Yeah.
Because we're allowed to do all. We can be the love interest. We can be the hero. We can be the villain. We can do all of that stuff. In the traditional, procedurals, my life is so much smaller. Like I had to say, as soon as third season, we wrapped third season, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is terribly sad, but now I have to go on and get another job. The things that first came across my emails, like all the jobs, I was just like, oh my God. Am I back there again? Like it just felt so. Oh yeah, it felt like it just crushed my heart, because I was just like, I'm and mind you, if anyone's listening out there about a network or studio, I'll be a captain. I have no problem. I got you.
Let me ask you this question, Michelle. When you wrap season 3, did they say, don't disconnect your phone? We might be calling you for another series, since the way they left off.
It's classified.
We are all
your first
hoping.
officer.
We're hoping we will support that. Oh my God, we are hoping. We are hoping,
and I'm hoping with you guys. Jerry and I and Ed. I mean, the concept of a Star Trek legacy. We love, and also, I mean, I just feel like we have so many more stories to tell.
Yes.
And I got to say, specifically, Raffi has a lot more stories to tell. We haven't seen a Raffi, such a perfectly imperfect character.
She's a grandmother.
I mean, she's a grandma now.
Like,
right.
Yes.
I fought 4 different changelings at one time with a Steadicam. That was one shot. That was pretty impressive.
Wow. That's awesome.
I that's one thing I've been wondering about is what the training was like and what it was actually like to do all those stunts, because you go hand to hand with Worf and you keep up.
That's right.
It was so impressive. You're like, you're as good as Worf, and it was so smooth. And it was perfection.
No, it was great. We honestly, what ended up happening was that episode, we shot that after the Christmas break. Now, we were all doing really good. We had our COVID protocols and all that stuff, and everything was great. We were shooting, and I'm really conscientious because I love Patrick and all my seniors, and I want to make sure that it is good. But our Christmas break, and I came back to New York. I, had all my doctor's appointments, my dentist, my, GYN, all that stuff. And I got COVID.
No.
Yeah, it kicked my butt. And so then I got back to LA to start shooting, and I was told that we were going to be doing this fight. And I had annoyingly, I'm a total athlete. I work out all the time. I'm a martial artist. I'm an athlete. But I was told that we're going to do this fight, and I had long haul fatigue, which, by the way, if anybody has experienced it, it's quite dreadful. You're literally like on the couch or in the chair, whatever, and you just have no, like, the thought of moving was just so foreign for me. I could not. I couldn't motivate myself to get back up. But I love my character. I love my show so much. I love the possibility of me fighting. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk to my stunt team. And for the 2, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before shooting, I went in, whether I was working or not, we carved out 2 hours every day to work on the fight so that I could get my stamina up so that I could do it in one take. Because we wanted to do a steady cam.
Nice.
We didn't want to do one section. We really wanted that flow to happen. And, I that's what I did. And by the time it was ready to shoot, I was ready. And I think we did 2 takes, and that take that's there is the first take.
Wow.
Very good.
That's great.
Incredible.
Pretty cool.
There were
I'm going to
so
go
many
rewatch that right when we're
right.
Yeah,
right.
There were so many moments throughout season 3 in particular. I loved all 3 seasons, but season 3, of course, is I call it the single greatest season of Trek ever. That's how good I feel that it is. It did everything for me that Next Gen did when it was at its height. I'm a huge Deep Space Nine fan too, and this whole season just touched on so many things. Yeah. And I'm glad that Terry Matalas went there and took some risk, because it could have been cheesy. It could have been cheesy.
It was. You're absolutely right.
Oh yeah, nothing but tear jerking and
tear jerking and good humor.
I loved every tear I cried though. I was jumping off the couch, Michelle, every time when Worf shows up to save your butt in that Ferengis thing. I'm jumping up and down like I haven't done that in years for television. And my wife's like, "You have lost your ever-loving mind." But it just was so good to see the gang back together.
There were so many good things.
Oh my!
I don't cry. I'm not a crier. I'm not a very emotional. But I was crying for in good ways. Like for so many things, especially the last episode, when they opened up with Chekhov. I was bawling.
Well, I gotta say,
nice touch.
What I found so interesting about this experience is that the 3 seasons, because when people talk to me about it and ask questions, I say that really the 3 seasons are kind of standalone seasons. Yeah. Because they're completely different. We have, the first season, Michael Chabon was our showrunner. Michael Chabon is a novelist. He writes amazing books, right? So the first season, if you think about it, was kind of like that, right? Like turning a page and reading, and it had that kind of pace to it. And you could be sitting and drinking tea and reading the story that we were unfolding. Second season, Akiva Goldsman was the showrunner, and he won an Oscar for A Beautiful Mind. So very heady, and numbers and time travel and science and all that kind of stuff. Third season, as you just mentioned, Terry Matalas, who is a true Trekkie. He was a PA on Voyager when Jerry had her very first day.
Oh, so,
wow.
They've known each other that long. Wow.
Yep, and they've been friends the entire time. And so I think, like, for him, he was a PA on that show because he was a Trekkie. He was, he was geeking out. He was like, I got to be on the show. So he's been, behind the scenes, watching it the whole time, worked his way up here, and now he's a showrunner. And he, and I don't think I'm saying anything I'm not supposed to say, whatever, but he absolutely championed every single legacy character that he brought on. There was, there might have been a possible, like, why do we need to bring that person on sort of from powers that be or whatever? And he literally was like, because they have to be here. The fans will appreciate them being here. They need this story to be told. And it's respectful to the Trekkie world that we bring them back and we tell this story.
Yeah.
And, for me too, watching it, I was just like, you better go, Terry, because he knocked it out.
Yeah, that's what it was like. They took one of us deep Trekkies, and he knew exactly what we wanted, what's been going through our heads. He knew, and he was able to get it done. And he wins Trekkie of the Year, Trekkie of the Decade. Right. Yeah. But yeah.
Also the legacy actors, Frakes and Gates McFadden.
Gosh,
I tell you what, there are, Michelle, I've said this to this crew, and I think publicly on this podcast, I don't know how there's not some Emmy nods in here for the acting, not just the effects and the story and the writing. There has got to be some Emmy nominations all the way around for the acting, because there are so many unbelievable moments. Every actor got to
I
shine.
agree.
It was phenomenal.
I will say. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Michelle. Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, yeah, I agree. And we, like no other Star Trek, new Star Trek, we were in the top 5 streaming.
Yes. But I will tell you, bringing on Amanda Plummer, her character, she must have had like every day go to set and saying, I'm going to have so much fun playing such a evil character. Jack, and spinning in her little chair and just smoking her cigarette.
Right.
And just like, I mean, how often do you get to play and have so much fun playing a character that was so well written and created out of essentially thin air, but still,
Right.
And to make her so lovable and so hated. And giving her, and I'm going to say this as I've said all along, the greatest exit line of any Star Trek character of all time when they eject her out of the ship. And what she says couldn't be on regular network television, but it fit her character. Absolutely beautiful.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did a little geek out, I have to say, because we don't crisscross at all on the show. And there was a day where I was at, like base camp getting my hair makeup done or whatever. And I stepped out. And she was standing there, and I was like, just be calm, Michelle. Just be cool. Just be cool. Just be calm. And I was like, oh, my God, I'm such a fan. You're so good at it.
That's great.
That's really
great.
cool.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle's human. Hooray. Just like the rest of us.
Just like the rest of us. Yeah, no, she's, and I got to say, on Blind Spot, I was the villain on Blind Spot, that show on NBC. And I got to say, when you're given a really yummy, juicy villain, something that you can sink your teeth in, it's the best. It's the best because you're given permission to sort of not, it's not like you're going over the top, but you just get to like luxuriate in all of it. It's delicious, and she did such a phenomenal job.
So what have been some of your other favorite roles outside of Trek that you've done?
Yeah, outside of Trek, because Raffi really is like my favorite. I think that she's so complex. She's so as I always say, perfectly imperfect. So much like we all are. She's by far my favorite. Shepard from Blind Spot is my second, just because I really, she was a righteous villain. She was a righteous villain, and she didn't think what she was doing was wrong. There was a reason why she was doing it. And as an actor, that gives you so much real estate to really, dig into, because you're validated. And nothing seems too far-fetched, and then it's tricky for me, because then they all sort of blend a little bit. They all have their own specific sort of joys. I loved Renee, because that was an interesting for Hawaii Five-0. I had Shy McBride was doing a show here in New York, and I had auditioned for his wife. I didn't get that, but then I got like a guest star, an episodic, star, whatever. And so I shoot that thing, and we start talking. We're getting along really well. I just have such a great, we're having a good day. And the second last day that I finished, we were walking to the car together. And he was like, "Oh, it's been such a pleasure, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Well, I did audition for your wife, so you could have had all this, but you're only getting a week of me." So then cut to, he gets cast in Hawaii Five-0, and they decide to give him a family. And he requested me to be his wife. And so when I got to, phenomenal. When I got to Hawaii, and I walk into my dressing room, there's like a bouquet of flowers, a bottle of champagne. He goes, "I guess I get all that now."
Well, that's the funny thing. We had friend of the show, great guy, John Billingsley on. And I asked him the question, because he was on Hawaii Five-0, an episode playing an attorney. And it seemed like he had a horrible time there. He's not a Hawaii person. You were there for how long? And did you enjoy your time on the island?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I recurred on Hawaii Five-0 for a couple of years. Like I'd show up at, I had a great time. I mean, Shy is phenomenal. Shy McBride is phenomenal. I loved working with him. The cast was really welcoming to me. I'll tell you the only thing that is sort of not a downside, but what's weird is that, and this is going to be such a strange thing to say, but Hawaii becomes a workplace and not a beautiful island destination vacation anymore.
Right.
That's funny you say that.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I used to have to go there on business with an old company, and people would say, "Oh my God, you went to Hawaii? What's it like?" And I said, "Well, it's the San Fernando Valley with beachfront property." Otherwise,
with jet lag.
My dear sweet wife, who's in the other room, who loves you on the show and loves the Hawaii 5-0, we go to Hawaii every year, every other year. We've been to all 4 islands, and it's really truly a paradise. So get to work on that show and to live on Hawaii, yes, in between shooting and where you got, where there's all that mayhem and everything the show always had.
Steve, should Elaine make a special guest appearance for just a moment here?
Want
me to mute your mic while you go?
Okay.
You okay with that, Michelle?
Of course.
Okay, hold on a second.
I'm going to mute you.
What are you saying, Chris? I see you saying something there.
Oh, I'm just very curious. I guess we can get into this later, but I just wonder, as an actor, what is one scene that you had to prepare for where you would prepare for it, go to bed, and then wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I have that scene tomorrow?
Well, I have to say the scene, and it was sort of that, but the scene with, I'll say hello here.
Okay.
Hello. Well, hello there. How you doing?
We've got to unmute Steve.
Sorry, I'm trying. Oh, I see what I'm doing here.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you. And yourself?
Good. I'm very well.
Good.
Very well.
Good.
I hear you're Hawaii. You like Hawaii. You enjoy Hawaii
do.
as well as Hawaii
Yes.
5-0.
Yes. It was my guilty pleasure. It's my Star Trek.
Oh, very nice. It's a good guilty pleasure. It's a good one. We had a blast.
Fun.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it coincided with when we first went to Hawaii, was about the time that it started.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole group has been, I had a great time.
We even had a Camaro that we rented. We called it Dano.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
Did you enjoy it there? Did you like?
I really did. I had a great time. I really liked hanging out with the cast. The cast was really nice to me.
Right.
We'd hang out and have dinners together. And I loved my downtime when I wasn't working, because they would put you on a hotel near the beach so you could like hang out on the beach.
Right.
It was all lovely. I mean, it was always kind of weird sometimes when I'd be at whatever hotel they'd put me up at, and I'd walk through the lobby and there'd be people in like wedding dresses and, or on their honeymoon. And I'm like, It's so weird. I'm at the hotel for work and they're here for their honeymoon. It's strange.
Pretty good work location, though.
Very good work location. So it was very fun. It was really fun.
Well, I had been watching the show while I exercised, and I think I finished the whole series. And my favorite part of you was, I think it was either the 8th or 9th season. You were in it for like a 2-minute conversation, and that was it. Yeah. And I thought, boy, that must be nice.
Oh, yeah. There were times literally they would fly me in for like that. I would fly in for like 3-4 days just for that. Yeah.
Great.
It's a good job if you can get it.
It is. Absolutely. Well, really nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you as well.
And I did enjoy you in Picard as well. You were a great character.
Thank you.
I'll get my husband back in here.
All right. Okay. And now, Chris, to answer your question. I have to say, one of the scenes that I don't want to say haunted me, but that I had read and I touched upon, and I sort of had to go like this, and I would touch it and I'd go like this, was when Elnor dies. It was one of those things that I read and I was like, man, I don't even have to. I'm not gonna do anything with that, because I've said this in many different interviews, but like Michelle loves Evan as much as Raffi loves Elnor. I think in fact, I just saw Issa this afternoon, and I'm going to see Evan at some point next week. But those two young actors were just such gifts. They're young actors, and it's their very first TV series, and they are walking onto a set with Patrick Stewart and Allison Pill and Jerry Ryan. These big people, and being directed by Jonathan Frakes, and that's a lot. And they just did such a phenomenal job. And
they did.
They really did. They really did. And Evan and I just really because Raffi needed a son. I had to lean into that. And so then I really just love Evan. So doing those scenes were really painful.
Yeah, it was just so beautifully acted, and it was like it was tough to watch. And I was like, I really hope there's some time travel stuff that's gonna fix things. But it was it was brutal.
It was brutal.
It was.
I have to say one thing is that when they showed your little mobile home, and they list in the bottom right-hand corner, Vasquez Rocks.
That's right.
Which is where so many episodes of Star Trek were shot. It was Vulcan in so many other series and movies. And I'm going, finally, truth in advertising. They're really saying Star Trek resides at Vasquez Rocks. And I thought that was so cool.
It was cool. And that's a pretty cool trailer, by the way. I think Raffi had a pretty cool setup. That's my personal.
Yeah.
So I have a question that's totally nerdy. Okay,
please.
This is the nerdiest question I may have asked any guests. Okay,
give it to me.
All right. Enterprise A, B, C, D, E, or F, or G, I guess.
Oh my God, that is a really good.
I told you. I'm sorry. I feel ashamed just asking it.
No, we're all wondering.
I don't know. I think I'm not as learned. I don't know if I would be able to pick that. I'm not sure.
That's cool.
I
say, do you legally have to say G now?
It is her ship. It is her ship.
Well, when I said that, that's literally what I thought, Chris. I was like, I guess the smart answer is to say, the one that I'm on.
Right.
My favorite. So G. The one that I'm on.
I'm going to think of a better question.
By 7 of 9.
I'm going to think of a better question and get back to you.
Okay.
Another question. I love talking to actors of like Trek actors about this, but how did you find the dialogues? I found like the series wasn't as technobabble heavy, but I imagine there must have been some times where like, I don't know what we're talking about here.
Oh my God, yes. And I'm like, I'm dyslexic. So there's literally times where I'm reading script, I'm like, that's not a word. That's not a name. I don't know what this is. Someone's going to have to say it to me like 3 times. And there were some times that we had some strange, even like simple things, like, because when you're shooting and it's such a strange thing, it really is. Because sitting here and talking, I could probably say these words, like even saying Tal Shayir, our tricorders and all that kind of stuff. When you're shooting and you have it attached to other things come out of your mouth that you're just like, Til Yashir, what? No, Tal Shayir, what do you, it's just, it is tricky, and all of us had to sort of lean into that, and everybody was really, it's sort of a norm thing. Like I'd ask, Patrick, and he's like, yes, that happens all the time, so it's just one of those things that we just kind of roll through. But yeah, and especially if you're dyslexic, you're just like, help me, please help me, help me.
So what do you do to memorize your lines? Like, do you have any tricks? Like,
no, I think everybody, all actors who memorize have their own different thing. There's no set pattern. Some people say their words into a tape recorder and listen back. Some people write their things out. I'm old school. I like having the paper script. I like highlighting my lines. I like reading the scenes through multiple times. My biggest thing that I always try to tell actors, and it seems really simple, and like, why would I have to say that? But you have to say it. is just know the story that you're telling. Just know why you're saying what you're saying.
The context around it.
Yes, like Brian and Dina, you both told me stories about your boys. You didn't need to look at any kind of notes. You're just telling that story, and if you've told that story again, you've probably told it in a very similar way, using some of the same words.
Yeah.
So it's just like that, like just really understanding what it is you're saying, what's the story you're telling, why you're telling what you're telling, and who you're telling it to. And when you get those things clear and you're really comfortable with your character, the words come because there's only certain words that you can use to tell this story. So that's kind of how I memorize. I don't know if that is even a real thing,
but that makes sense. So one of the things I do is I'm a speaker, And I did Toastmasters for 10 years. And one of the things that we taught ourselves and taught our club is to not memorize your speech. You might write down your speech initially, but don't memorize it. And I did make the mistake when I started out. I was memorizing them until the day I got to a contest, and I blanked out in the middle of it. And then since then, I really digested that whole concept of don't memorize the speech, memorize the story, the concepts. The words will come in. If they're not the exact words I did last time, that's okay. They don't have to be. So no, that totally makes sense. Yeah. I never would have thought of that in terms of dialogue for a show like this, but that makes sense.
Same thing. Yeah.
Were they strict on the words you had to use? Because I heard that with like 90s Trek, it was very much you couldn't, if there was a what, but you changed the what to something else, there'd be a whole process where you'd either have to redo it or you'd have to get permission from the top level to change that word. Yeah. No,
they're still, I mean, it's interesting because we have writers on set. So because we have writers on set, which by the way, I support the WGA, the Writers Guild strike. It's really important. I hope everybody understands that what's happening right now is the AMPTP is trying to do away with the writer's room, which is kind of like doing away with the writer's vocation. And we really can't let that happen. The writers are what gives us our words. We need writers, and we can't have AI, stepping in for real people. People, it's really important. So I support the WGA like nobody's business.
It's interesting because when people say like, "Oh, is these characters going to fall in love with each other? Are going to happen? Whatever." It's the writers who decide that.
That's right.
They write the story. The actors don't write the story.
No,
the writers write the story.
The writers write the stories, and So with Star Trek, it was very, what is on the script is what we say, but there was a understanding. I say this often. Patrick. What I loved so much about working with him, because he's Patrick, Sir Patrick, and plays Picard. He understands so well the story and storytelling of Star Trek. So when we would get to sections, if we got to sections that he didn't believe in, he would literally go, "No, this is not right. We must look into this and change it because the fans will know." And he was, and the whole thing would shut down. Everybody like, "Okay, let's stop and let's talk about this." And they would rework it, revamp it, fix it. So we I wouldn't sort of go, "This line sucks." I wouldn't have that much gravitas as Patrick Stewart does, but they were very aware of that kind of stuff. And if things were not, seemed bumpy, there would be a moment to change. And it's an interesting thing because I just got back from Australia where I was shooting a film where that's directed and written by Will Gluck. He wrote and directed Friends with Benefits, Easy A, Peter Rabbit, those films. He does really good rom-coms. And what was so interesting about working with him is that he's the writer and director. So he could change lines like on the spot. And that was a really an interesting experience for me because I was given so much more freedom within the parameters, And I think as an actor, it's exciting to have to go from both the Star Trek kind of world or procedural world and that kind of world, because you just have to learn how to find your freedom in whatever parameters you have. If it's this on a TV show or this on a film, as long as I know where here is, I can live in between. So it's very interesting. And, sometimes it's challenging, especially in procedurals, because procedural shows, if and but has to be in exactly the right place. Period.
Interesting. No because you were on. My girlfriend was getting me into Bones, and so we came across your episode. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's Raffi!" But the dialogue you had on that was pretty tough too, because you're dealing with all the forensic science.
Yep, and that's medicine. Yeah, forensic. Memorize. Yeah, all that kind of stuff is hugely challenging. I remember when I was doing The Glades, my dear friend Carlos Gomez, who I love madly, phenomenal actor. He was the coroner, and he would have days where he'd just be like, "Michelle, every single line is a medical jargon. Every single line." And I'm just like, "I'm so sorry. I was, of course, the captain on that one." But yeah, so Bones definitely did that as well. Yeah.
I have to pick on Chris for a second. Chris, you just said your girlfriend.
Is it?
Right. I also want to be like my
There you go.
even though
He
we joked
recently
about
got-
it time.
Chris just got engaged.
Oh,
That's why I'm like picking on him. He needs to start saying
for it.
my fiance.
I just
Congratulations.
don't want to be annoying, even though it's like, is it
No.
like, oh, by the way, I want to drop my fiance.
No, because you know what? Fiance is a term that you get to use for just a certain period of time. So
Yeah.
Yep.
use that, have
Right,
fun with
okay.
it. My
Yep.
fiance, my
All right, I've
fiance.
got permission, big sci-fi fans.
See?
Be ready.
Yeah, my daughter just got engaged, and
Congratulations.
hence I can't say her boyfriend anymore. I have to say,
Mhm.
her fiance.
Her
I have to
fiance.
remember to say
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Got more weight to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then Michelle, I have to say,
Yeah.
I love when you are doing your version of Sir Patrick Stewart. That's
Oh, it's so
that's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
We're
Wow.
sitting here giggling. It's great.
I
It's great.
love JL. She's wonderful. You must understand that. I do love Patrick. He's just fantastic.
So,
It's
are
awesome.
you allowed to say much about the movie you just filmed? If it's a rom-com,
Oh
or
yeah,
we'll
it's
get more information?
oh,
later?
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a rom-com at this
Okay.
moment. You know how sometimes movies change names, but so at this moment, it's called Anyone But You, and it stars Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell.
Oh,
And then I'm in it, and Rachel Griffith's in it, and Dermot Mulroney's in it, and Brian Brown. So a bunch of fun actors, and it's kind of like a little bit of a Much Ado About Nothing, and it's really wonderful. And I got to say, this was one of the most. I always love my cast. I've been very lucky to almost every job I've been in. I've had a really wonderful experience. There's never been like a really yucky kind of like I hate that job. It's always been really kind of wonderful. And this one was that and beyond. There was 10 of us, and we just got on so well,
Wow.
so well that during the Easter break, we rented a cabin up in the Blue Mountains of Australia, and we all went and stayed in a cabin, a bunch of actors, cooking together, hiking together, laughing together, and it was just so good. And I don't, it's not a guarantee, but I have to say, when you get together, a group of people who work so well together, who have so much fun together, creating a rom-com, there's a good possibility that it's going to be a really good movie. So, and we have a release date. It's a Sony movie, so it's not going to be on it's not on a streamer. It's going to be in the theater. Yay.
In the theaters,
Cool.
yes.
December 15th. So,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll look for. We'll save our pennies.
Yes, please.
Fiance.
Real quick question.
Date night.
Okay,
Date
there
night.
you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so if my
yeah.
husband's
we love
listening to this, we
rom-coms.
got
It's
date
perfect.
night in December.
Date night. And it's a
The-
perfect date movie. Yeah.
Cool.
What do you think?
The question I have is, did they choose Australia because of production reasons or because the story is based in Australia?
Yeah, I think they chose Australia because it was production reason, and they made the story because of that. So
Encompass that.
Will Gluck has worked in Australia before. He's really enjoyed it, so he wanted to bring this one down. So in the story, my daughter's getting married. I'm the second wife to this very rich Australian man. So
Okay.
I brought the entire family over to Australia to have the wedding. So it was one
Very
of those.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've
Did
got
you
to
enjoy it?
Oh, sorry.
So much.
Okay.
much.
Sorry, Brian.
I've got
Go on,
another
Brian.
question.
Yes. Okay. Is this going to be a good one, Brian?
It's nerdy, but it's not as nerdy as that one.
Okay.
I'm not going to edit the first one out though, because I think it was.
Don't edit it
Oh,
out.
don't edit it out. It's good
So,
content.
yeah, you guys will be like, "That's too much power he's wielding." If
Yeah.
he was embarrassed, he let us be embarrassed plenty. So your scenes with Michael Dorn, were some of my favorites because I'm a huge
I'm so
Worf
glad.
fan, and to see you two, I mean, Chris kind of alluded to it, the fight scenes, and there's one particular, I can't remember which episode, but it was a major where you two were going at it against the bad guys.
Right. Mhm.
And maybe it was that all-in-one motion shot, with where it was all one camera movement and whatever. I gotta say that as someone who loves a well choreographed fight scene, okay, and I'm not a violent fellow, but one of the times for me that I was jumping off the couch was when you and Michael Dorn were just I mean, it was so beautiful, and you saying that you're a martial artist too. That's what I want to know about. What got you into the martial arts? And
Well, yeah.
because that's very interesting.
Yeah.
to me, and something
Yeah.
part of your background maybe some fans aren't aware of.
Probably. Full honesty. I'm a native New Yorker, and growing up in the city, I went through a little bit of a delinquent time, which also, by the way, is stuff that like fed me for Raffi. You know, that whole thing of like, because what I find so interesting is that, you know, I was a teenager and I kind of went, you know, I started like with Rocky Horror, right? Watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show and then always being out for a midnight show. And then it just kind of like staying out and just being just a dreadful teenager. But what you see is that, like in retrospect, teens are generally like looking for a place that they can claim. You know, they're looking for their own space, not what mom and dad have told them to, not what siblings are telling them, not what everybody, but their own thing. You know, so in retrospect, I see little Michelle was just looking for her group. But I was just going down a really bad path. And my father was a martial artist as well. And they basically said, why don't we get you into martial arts? And they steered me towards the martial arts conservatory, which was in the village. And I have to say, if it wasn't for martial arts, I probably wouldn't be here today, because what I was able to do was I had my space. I had a group of people who were mine, not from anyone else. They were mine. And with martial arts, I saw that if I committed to something, was focused on something, was respectful about something, I could achieve, I could grow, I could better myself. And, you know, it wasn't someone else telling me, the teenager, right? Not someone else telling me that I needed to be more committed, more, you know, focused and all that stuff. That would have been like this. It was me discovering it by doing punches, by doing kicks, by starting with kicks here, and then kicks here, and then kicks here. And then I was like, my kick's here. Who did that? You did that. You did that because you committed to yourself. So, you know, my style is Goju, which is classic karate back in the day, Goju and Teibojutsu. I do Tai Chi as well. But it was literally my saving grace. It was the thing that kept me on a more healthy path. And I'm so thankful for it. And, you know, those of you who have children, there's just a little window in that sort of thing that they're just looking for their voice. Yeah. They're just looking for their voice and not someone to tell them what their voice should be, but for them to be able to say, this is my voice. I found it. I'm claiming it. And, you know, and that's it. And, you know, just be there to support them and watch it. And also for Brian and Dina, both of you told me that your sons have been called girls when they were munchkins. Well, this voice was my voice when I was 2 or 3 years old. I was called Mr. Hurd's son for a big chunk of, you know, including my delinquent time. And you know what? It's fine. I turned out okay.
Right.
Yeah. And well, the funny thing, we were talking about this. I was talking about this with some people today with my son, my older son, who's almost 13. And we were talking about like, just are things getting better with the different genders and just people, you know, and I, you know, noticed a couple of years ago, he was playing Fortnite with his friends and you choose a skin. When you play Fortnite, you choose a skin. And I noticed that him and his friends, him and his guy, like they were choosing the female skins just as often as the male skins, and without it being a big deal, that they were just as kick butt. And I asked him, when I noticed one day he's playing with this female skin, I'm like, hey, why'd you choose? Not trying to just hey, why'd you choose that? And it was just cool. And I'm thinking in my head, like, yes. It's yes.
It's very common. Like there's a game series called Assassin's Creed, and a couple of years ago one came out where you could either play the female version or the male version. And people said, oh, the male version was okay, but everybody liked the female version better.
I love that.
It's something that you wouldn't expect to see. But it's changing a lot.
Yeah.
It is.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I mean, that, you know, I think that it does. I mean, you guys have kids. I feel like there's hope for tomorrow because I do feel like there's, you know, that generation is not interested in, you know, labels. There's a wonderful book called Finding Jesse that Chris Cooper, the actor, his wife wrote. Their son Jesse was born with cerebral palsy and was paraplegic. He had a lot of issues. And there's this one section in it that it broke my heart in the most beautiful way. The mother writes about a time where one of Jesse's friends asked if he could come over, if Jesse could come over to his friend's house to play. And they said, sure, you can, no problem. So Jesse went over to the other house. The mother, saw this young boy in the wheelchair, the whole thing, and said to Jesse's friend, why didn't you tell me about Jesse? And the friend said, tell you what?
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he only saw Jesse.
Yeah.
He only saw
That's
Jesse.
wonderful.
And that's what we want. That's what we want.
Yes.
Bring it right back around to Star Trek. That's what we want.
Yep. I definitely think there's hope, when I watch the kids.
And here's a quick story. I'm going to brag on my daughter, but we live in a part of Canton, Ohio, that is predominantly white.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to a school system that is predominantly white. And one day she came home and said, Dad, I drew a picture of my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And her best friend is, I think, Samoan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a field trip with her class, and she's the only one in the class. And my daughter, who's this beautiful blonde, blue-eyed girl, I can't tell you the emotion I felt when my daughter is, just that's who her best friend is. That's who she gravitated for. It's not a matter, and it could have been anybody.
And they don't know. Yeah,
it could have been anybody.
That's right.
And she doesn't understand how powerful that is, and that she has also an opportunity to be positive in that little girl's life, to say, I'm not like everybody else.
That's right.
And I see you for who you really are. And
it's beautiful.
And kids are that racism is freaking taught.
They don't.
It's so
taught.
Right.
And
So
so
taught.
it's just we're so thankful for you, Michelle, and grateful for you being on our show. And I'm saying that because we want to respect your time, but we can't tell you how much we appreciate you and what you bring to Star Trek, what you bring to entertainment, what you just brought to our podcast, but also just your spirit is evident, your kindness, your grace is evident, and it's so nice to meet you and see that you are a good person, that you care about others, and you're passionate about what you do and really good at it too, by the way.
And it shows. So
well, thank you. You guys are awesome, and thank you for saying those kind words. I really appreciate it. And all I ever try, I say this to my hubby all the time, is that just trying to do better every day. I just try to do better, and I have hope, because it's interesting. When during the pandemic, when we're all shut down, and then there was all the videos of people getting killed, and and it was just a lot. It was really a lot, and I don't know if Chris, if you experienced this, but I kind of felt like I was having some weird PTSD as a person of color. It was just it was a lot, and I called my mom, and the white one, the white woman, and I said, Mommy, you and Daddy, because my father's passed. I said, you guys were alive when Dr. King was assassinated, when Malcolm X was assassinated, when both Kennedys were assassinated. You were vilified being in black and white, getting married. Your family had disowned, all this stuff. I said, you must have felt like the sky was coming down, because I feel like the sky is coming down right now. I'm so outside of my body. I don't know what to do. What can I do? And my mom said, honey, you have to have hope. You have to have hope for a better tomorrow, because we're on the right side of history and we're not going anywhere. And that's like my thing. I just want us to hold space, like Star Trek. I want us to hold space for people who are different. Take deep breaths, find some similarity, and have and try to do better for tomorrow, because that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It's in every one of us. It's required of us all to set an example, to do what we say and do what we do and show it to other people. But really, I say, Michelle, your smile just says you're a happy person. And we are so grateful that you connected with Adina, and when we learned that you're going to be on the show, it was like
It was
Pandemania.
It was like
Pandemonium.
It just thank you. Thank
It
you
was
so
a
much for your time.
rough day at work, trying not to smile every time I was thinking. It's just like, oh, I got to talk to a client. I can't be smiling.
Well, with all that, I want to say, Michelle, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. And I'm going to say thank you to the listening audience too.
Yes,
we know that everyone has had a great time listening, and hope everyone feels that they were part of this conversation as well. And, maybe you also just wanted to chime in and have some things to say during this episode. So we would love to know about that. You can always email us at thebigscifipodcast@gmail.com to let us know what you think. Or you can let us know your thoughts by joining our awesome Facebook group or following us on Instagram and Twitter, or by subscribing to our YouTube page for the video content that we share. So we are now part of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and you can check us out and all the other amazing podcasts at trekgeeks.com. So until next time, be well, be kind, and live long and prosper so you can catch the next exciting episode of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast.